Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jennifer Thompson-Walker, and I'm an industry engagement specialist at Algonquin College, and we are very proud to be supporting the panel of speakers here today. Today we have Seth Richards, President at Westview Projects, Lee Fuller, Procurement Coordinator, Thomas Fuller Construction, Hubie Splinter, President of Grayback Construction and 2024 OCA Chair, Steve Schmaltz, Operations Manager at PCL Construction, and Bruce Thomas, President at Vaughan Eastern Construction Limited. So welcome, and we will get started.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Great to see everybody. You've met the panel, and we're going to start today just by each of the panel members just going to give a brief description about what they do, what their company's about, and size of our firms, and then we'll have some questions, and going to entertain a lot of audience participation, audience questions and answers, and we're here to answer anything you guys want to know about, or if we can or can't, and we'll go from there. So we'll start with Seth.
This is working? There we go.
Perfect.
Good morning, everyone. Some of you, some familiar faces in the audience, but for those of you who are new to Westview or don't know much about us, Westview Projects was founded in 2016. The majority of our work is servicing multi-residential clients. We do maintain about 20% of the business doing ICI work, so that's working with private landlords and businesses in Ottawa, doing anything from office fit-ups to auto dealerships to veterinarian hospitals. On the multi-residential side, we've built about 800 apartment units over the last 4 or 5 years. We're just wrapping up a couple projects and about to start. We have started. We're moving dirt down at LeBreton Flats, working with Dream. So our next kind of phase of projects are kicking off this year. So LeBreton Flats is 2 towers, about 608 units. So we're working under a construction management agreement with Dream on that. The organization is currently about 35 on salary. We do maintain an hourly group of workers, mainly just to kind of service our jobs from a general condition standpoint, health and safety, and housekeeping. We're a signatory to CLAC, which is the Christian Labourers Union of Canada. So happy to be here and happy to answer some questions. So,
great. Thank you, Seth. And Lee?
That's my turn. Okay, it's working. We're good. My name's Lee. I'm with Thomas Fuller Construction. We've been around since 1958, so a little bit of time. We've, in the past, done some pretty impressive projects on Parliament Hill, the Library of Parliament, Peace Tower, to name a few. See Joanne there. We've completed over 900 individual projects in the city and around the city, and specializing particularly in challenging projects and heavy civil work, so wastewater treatment plants, pump stations, all that good stuff. As Bill likes to say, we are number 1 in the number 2 business. Recently, we've been branching into more pre-construction work as well. Over COVID, we had the opportunity to work on PDP3, some mixed-use residential projects, and currently we are working on the hotel here over at the airport for Groupe Jomain. So that's very exciting and different kind of work for us. We do everything from lump sum work, construction management, design build, ICI for the most part.
Great. Thanks, Lee. Bruce?
Morning. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Bruce Thomas, President, Vaughan Eastern Construction, formerly Vaughan Engineering, for those that have been around a while in the industry. What we're doing these days is we do a lot of high-rise res. Not the top Seth, but about 1,000 units in the last 5 or 6 years, and another 800 under construction, and probably another 800 in pre-construction right now moving forward. We have a sister company, Arnon, that's in the real estate and asset management business. So in the past, a lot of commercial office buildings, a lot of heavy civil in my early days, and we've been around since 1958 as well. So our owner and Mr. Fuller go back to the beginning there in terms of the Ottawa construction industry. So.
Thanks, Bruce. And Steve.
Hi, Steve Schmaltz with PCL Construction. In the market these days, we sort of run two major streams of work. We kind of have the, for lack of a better term, the biggest of the big. Almost all publicly funded contracts here right now, whether it's the current library redevelopment for the city, things like the center block of Parliament, or the front end of the Ottawa Civic Campus redevelopment, and things of that nature. So, you know, we have a lot of work on the books, but a lot of it is also the type of stuff that has a very long lead to it. And so while we're actively working on planning and developing and sorting out how, you know, contracting is going to take place, we're not actually doing a lot of building in some of these contracts here yet. It's one of the things that's kind of unique with the market at the moment is we're seeing, I would say, a little more capacity amongst the trade contractors than we've seen in the past, but we also know, just based on some of the things we'll talk about today, that another very significant wave of work is coming between the work that's already been contracted and the things that we're hoping to see released. The other thing that PCL does, you know, we do a ton of what we refer to as sort of special projects, but we'll do anywhere from, you know, 40 to 50 individual contracts on fit-ups, smaller developments, repeat client work, anything that sort of keeps us in contact with the people that we try to do work with on a regular basis. So whatever that may be, we hope to be part of that solution.
Great. Thanks, Steve. And I'm Hubie Splinter with Graybeck Construction. Graybeck's a general contractor, been around since 2000. We do a lot of, we're on a lot of pre-qualification lists with hospitals, schools, universities. We do a lot of renovation work in those. We also been doing some construction management the last few years, and a lot of lump sum bidding. So that's what we're all about. So we got a good panel here. We're 5 of us here. We can pretty much got all the industry covered in the general contracting sectors, different sizes, different types of projects, and we can answer. I'll open the floor at any time. If you have a question, you want to ask a question, just put your hand up, and we'll tackle that. But I can get things started just with in general throw something at the board. Just about when one question I'm going to ask everybody was when you're assessing a new opportunity, like how do you assess the risks, the conditions, and what makes it up your final decision whether to pursue that opportunity? Go for it, Steve.
Okay, I guess like the first thing when we're looking at a new opportunity is just the first, you know, the basic for everyone is the lay of the land, who else is potentially bidding, you know, just whether or not you have any advantages with the entire setup of the bid scenario. But the next step for us is taking a good hard look at the contract itself and whether or not it's something that we consider to be fair or reasonable. I mean, as we've all seen in the, you know, in the industry here, you know, contracts continue to evolve. You know, our clients and the people that are procuring work on behalf of public agencies are always looking to close loopholes or solve issues that they dealt with on previous projects, or just try to find different ways to get the best benefit from their perspective. And in some cases, that creates contracts that we're not interested in working under, you know, or that we want to try and push back against to try and see what we can do. You know, and at least try to bring a little bit more favor, I would say, and fairness into the process. It's one of the places where the OCA has been beneficial to be able to have a place to bring sort of some of the questions, concerns, concepts, things that you're interested in discussing, I would say. You know, beyond that, it's you know, just making sure that the opportunity lines up with the, you know, the people that we have. You know, we generally don't bid work or take on any contract without knowing that we have a team that can step up and do the work, you know, assuming the work starts on time, which is not always the case in our world.
So from our perspective, we typically do negotiated proposal-based work. We don't play in the public bid sandbox, try to stay away from it. But what I always tell people about our operation is the first test for us is fit, and it's fit with the owners we might be working for, with the consultants, with the trade contractors, and we look for that relationship-based fit to make sure that the people we're working with are a fit. And I don't think there's a fit in every opportunity. You know, certain clients have different approaches. Some may be very, very bottom dollar focused. And I always say sometimes people make you spend $1 of your money to save a nickel of theirs, and that's not really the best place for us. I don't think that's a good use of our resources. So fit is the first test, and once we feel like we've got a good fit in terms of the relationship, as Steve mentioned, contracting, the types of contracts that are out there are pretty important. And in my part of my other world here is I'm on the National Advisory Council for the CCA General Contractors Group, and we're currently working on a guidance document about how to deal with construction contracts and what to be aware of when you're reading them and what to look for, because I think we all understand out there that a lot of people bid projects and they don't have time to read. I hear it from trades all the time, well, I don't have time to read your contract, I'm just bidding it, and if I'm low, we're going to have a discussion about what's in the contract, which does cause some issues when we're trying to negotiate things. But what we're trying to say to the trades and everybody is we're going to give this guidance document to say, at least read these key elements of it and comment on them when you're bidding it, or be aware of the risks associated with it, because a lot of people sign a lot of bad contracts. And we're not interested in relationships with either our owners or our trades or our consultants where people are in bad arrangements, because contracts need to be a win-win. Both parties need to benefit from it. So I think this document that come out will be very helpful, because there are key clauses in there. And right now, things like insurance are a huge issue. So you look at the insurance and the transfer of risk associated with insurance, and I'll use deductibles as an example. Currently, plumbing deductibles are headed north of $500,000 a year. And I just had one policy renewed at $750,000 deductible, which is basically no insurance unless there's a disaster, and a big disaster. But how do the trades, protect themselves if you're bidding a project and you got to carry $750,000 in risk just in case you flood a building? And I'm sure Seth could comment on floods in buildings, because we've certainly had a couple. And when you flood a 30-story building from the top down, it makes a mess. And it's pretty quick, it's pretty easy to spend $1 million fixing those messes. So who's taking on the risk of that deductible? And if I was telling a trade one thing, look at the insurance deductibles when you're bidding a project. And if it's a big number, you might want to condition your bids to say, hey, we're only going to be responsible for this size of deductible, because I don't know how you deal with it. The insurance industry is, I understand why they're doing it. The message I've given to my own staff is we can't have these things happen. So we have to do things to prevent these things from happening, working with our trades. So, assessing risk in the contracts you're bidding is super important, because it can tear a contractor down pretty quickly if you're stuck with some of these things. So I think, read your contracts carefully is the message, and don't bid on things that are overly onerous. If nobody bids on a project, owners are going to have to change what they're asking for. So.
Thanks, Bruce. Good info. Lee?
Right. Bruce and Steve covered it pretty well. There's a couple of other things I'd mention for us specifically when we're looking at opportunities. Safety would be one of them, the physical location of the job, what sort of external factors are there, and how would that play into construction activities, and is it something that we feel confident we could pursue? Another thing would be the funding that the owner might have. There's a lot of long-term care proposals that have gone out recently, and some new groups have popped up, and it's one thing to pursue a long-term care home, especially when you've built a few of them, you know how it goes. But if it's a newer group, you sort of want to spend the extra time to look into them or get to know them, make sure that the funding is there so you're not wasting your resources or potentially winning a job that you get stuck with halfway through. Another thing we would look at too is our own portfolio. Are we qualified? Do we have the personnel in place to execute the work successfully? And can we stand up, as Steve was saying, with the other competition and present a successful number and a successful product at the end of the day?
Great, thanks.
Yeah, so for Westview, it'd be very similar to Bruce. I mean, the majority of the work we do is kind of negotiated or RFP based, very much a relationship based company. So we try to align with clients, and if they got big work, we try to do the big work, and if they got small work, we do the small work, and just kind of stay aligned with those clients. The biggest challenge for us is because we're an organization of 30 to 40 individuals, is really trying to choose projects and clients that we're confident that the start date is going to be met or within that reasonable window. Obviously over the last 18 months or 2 years, with the changes in interest rates and inflation and stuff like that, it's put a lot of pressure on the private developer community. They're trying to make performance work and projects work, we're spending a lot of time on pre-construction, value engineering, all that kind of good front end stuff. But really for us, the business works when projects go, and we can assign those individuals in the organization to a project and recover those salaries. Yeah, I would say the biggest risk for us is aligning with a client, and we spend 6 months doing pre-construction work, and then the project gets shelved. So we try our best to mitigate that as best we can. But I think it's an issue that our entire industry is facing right now with just trying to align start dates and getting projects off the ground. So
Great, thanks. Thanks, guys. And just if I can reinforce, just for the contractors in the room, general contractors, if you're bidding, especially on the hard bidding, just read your front end of the specs and know the contract that you're agreeing to sign before you submit that tender. Once you submit the tender, it's done. But if there's conditions you're not comfortable with, or you're reading through, you're not sure about something, like I've been involved with the OCA for many years, the Standard Practice Committee, and the OCA will stand up and represent the contractors on your behalf, and are there to help you and to work with you to make sure we're signing proper contracts and agreeing to proper conditions. That's great. So, any questions from the audience, or after listening to that, anybody have anything there? Oh, yes, sir, James.
Yeah, it's a question about talk about qualifying bids and that. We're seeing a lot of long warranty periods on specs and that. Just wondering, comment on how you qualify, and if you are qualifying your bids due to longer warranty periods.
Probably start with that. I mean, that is something that when we're doing contract reviews that we're absolutely looking out for. And depending on the wording of sort of what's there, there's some concerns that we would have around things like evergreen warranties, where the expectation is at the end of an extended warranty period, the product is still of a like new nature, which obviously isn't realistic in a lot of scenarios. I mean, those for us are things that we will in some cases drive us away from a bid opportunity. In other cases, like we try to push back with the client, or have the language at least amended in a manner before the tender goes in. To sort of Bruce's point, like once the tender goes in, you've kind of made your declaration that you're okay with what's in that language. And qualifying bids is usually not looked on very well inside the from the client in the procurement industry. So like we try very hard to address those before pricing goes in, whether through the RFI process or through the OCA.
Is your question based on lump sum GC work or other kind of work in terms of warranties?
We're seeing it on all different types of contracts.
Because I think in our world where we do a lot of CM work like Seth does, warranties are things that we're sorting out on behalf of the owners. But I would say to the subtrade community out there, especially the mechanical electrical subtrade community, when equipment's being used on a temporary basis to heat a building, and we expect the equipment to operate, there's a bit of a warranty gap issue there, because your manufacturers are expecting you to start the warranty as soon as you turn it on, and we're expecting you to start it at substantial completion. So I know most subtrades sort of self-insure the gap on it, but it's something to consider when you're bidding a project. We'd like to hear that. Like, how does that affect a subtrade in terms of the gap in warranty? Because that's what I would see as more of a risk in the kind of work we do is, equipment being used prior to substantial. So.
But yeah, I think as far as any extended warranties for sub-trades like windows or roofs or stuff like that, a lot of that is borne by the trade. The general contractor, generally we have our standard warranty as per the CCDC document, and any extended warranties would be for specific items, mechanical, electrical, windows, roofing would be borne by the trade.
And to Steve's point, when you're bidding the project, bring these things up.
Mm-hmm.
Like very often I'm dealing with these things after people are low because they don't have time, and the comment is, I got 20 contracts to bid this week. I don't have time to read the contract. Well, take 15 minutes and at least find the highlights and find the hot button items. We're hoping this document where the CCA is going to issue this year will help people, in a short period of time get to the most important things and at least bring them up. So.
All right, was there another question? Yep.
To the comment about risk coming from the owner side since COVID, let's say, has the trend reversed at all, where you're able to push back a little bit, negotiate a better contract? Because it's been a decade long or more trend with more and more risk coming down the way.
I mean, I think it depends specifically on the opportunity and the group that's presenting the opportunity. But again, as Steve had mentioned, for us anyways, all of those things would be addressed pre-tender, whether through an RFI process, you know, and also through the various associations as well. If we saw something in particular that popped up that we thought, hey, that's really not fair, that's quite a lot that you're throwing on our plate, we would bring it up either with the OCA or the General Contractors Association as well, and say, and look for some insight there and other avenues that we could maybe bring that group to the table to discuss what would be a little bit more beneficial for the industry as a whole.
Again, you all have a choice. You can bid or not to bid. And there was a recent example in a town east of the city here that they had a clause that said only 20% of the bid was going to count and the rest of it was going to be subjective, but they were going to wait till the bids were in before they decided to do the subjective analysis. Okay, and there was pushback from the industry through the OCA, and they've now issued an addendum, paused the project, and they're rethinking it. So I would encourage everybody to work with us. The OCA is a resource for all of you to bring these to our attention. If you feel like you're alone out there, speak up. But you have a choice. You don't have to bid bad contracts. And the sooner we stop bidding bad contracts, the sooner owners are going to start to have to make changes.
Yes.
My name is Angelina. I own a horticulture company from Landscape, Ontario. I think this is a question for the renovations and new builds. So our company does most of the softscaping, the planting of the little shrubs and trees around construction. I wanted to know what's your top 3 criteria selection for a horticulture company that would install your softscaping in your building?
Seth, you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly for us, you know, we're typically tendering out an entire landscape package, so hardscape and softscape. We're often not breaking that up. So, you know, if my advice to you would be to, you know, align with companies that are, you know, doing kind of large landscape work, and maybe they don't have maybe they're subcontracting the softscape portion of it, and you can align with them and you know, kind of come under the umbrella of them with the, you know, construction manager or the general contractor on a project.
All right, I'll move on to test the board with something else. We'll talk about, ask you guys your perspective on resourcing, staffing, and manpower. And, Lee, you want to start?
Here I go. Well, I don't think it's a secret. Staffing has been a bit of a challenge through, well, I guess even through COVID and right up to this day. Part of it is generating interest in the younger generations coming up in the industry itself. And Bruce and Julia at the OCA have done a fantastic job trying to generate more interest and bring it out to schools, communities, the younger generation coming up. So I'd encourage anybody to promote that for sure. When it comes to resourcing and staffing, I guess for our firm in particular, we look at it a little bit differently. We want to have the right people at the table. So if we're hiring for project management, we want people that are going to come to the table and essentially run their own business through that project, have a little bit of ownership for it. You know, it's more important to us to wait for that right person than it is to put bodies in a chair. We will actually pass up opportunities if we don't feel that we've got the right team going. There are a lot of different avenues out there that you can go through to staff your projects and staff your office as well, but I think at the end of the day, it really just comes down to finding that right group and doing your best to retain them as well, not just through monetary means, but also making them feel like they're part of the group, giving them some sort of sense of family almost, you know?
Yeah, I think, on the human resources side of things, just generally productivity in the industry, there's, technology's helped a lot. I mean, it's improved process and improved how, things move and how fast things can happen. At the same time, though, I haven't been in the industry as long as Bruce or Steve. Steve actually hired me at PCL, so.
I feel old every day now.
So certainly, like my first few years at PCL, there definitely was more of a, willingness in the industry. Like people, I think were just, crushing longer hours, weekends, nights, that kind of thing. There certainly seems to be more of a work balance, push in the industry, which is, probably a good thing. That being said, though, you need a few more bodies to do probably the same amount of work that you did 10 years ago. And for us, we have to, we've working with clients years over years, and we did a project in 2019 with a client and started a new one in 2022, and we look at our staffing matrix. We've got a couple more bodies on that project, and it's for us, it's educating the client on, they come and say, well, when we did this project with you 3 years ago, you only had, 2 site guys, and now you're putting a finishing foreman in there, or a third guy. And, it's educating clients to basically say that, like our site guys are not willing to crush 12-hour days, 365 days a year. And, having a bit more of support and, a little bigger roster on some projects is the trend that we're seeing.
Thanks, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, I would sort of echo some of those comments. It's certainly been a reality in our world that we're having to use more resources to do the same work. Like as the cost of work has gone up, but not necessarily the size of work. I mean, we measure, basically billings per person, as a standard metric to be able to just see, okay, how efficient are we operating? And as the jobs have gotten more expensive, we have not gotten a lot more efficient. And some of that has to do with the fact that the industry constantly, I mean, when you look at what it took to do a job 15 years ago versus what you do now, from, the quality and information that is in, the bid documents, how big and complicated the contracts may be now, to, the requirements from safety and other reporting requirements that, you're trying to stay in front of. It takes a lot of effort and resourcing to sort of stay on top of those things. I mean, in the market here right now, like, there is I would say a bit of a gap, for lack of a better term. I mean, there's a lot of big work out there that is on the cusp of ramping up into, I would say, pretty significant volumes. And then we know just from talking that there's a number of sort of, backlog residential type projects and things like that that we know are going to go. Like, we were pretty stressed sort of leading into and sort of coming out of some aspects of COVID. Different parts of the business were very busy, other parts were not. And we're expecting in the next few years that we're going to see, ideally everybody being very busy, unfortunately probably overly busy, and stressed out to a pretty great extent. I mean, that's going to require a lot of, I'd say, partnerships and conversations and, some mobility in terms of the workforce and things of that nature too, where, we may be pulling workers into this market, on a larger perspective, I think, than we ever have before.
So I'm going to take an opportunity to promote something we've done at the OCA here. We launched a website called ocacareers.ca a month ago at the AGM, and our focus has been, we've got a great industry. This is a wonderful place to work, and we have a lot of wonderful people who are on the cusp of retiring, and we need to bring more people in. But there's a lack of knowledge out there amongst younger people and their parents about what our industry has to offer and what it takes to get to our industry. And you don't need a university degree necessarily, or even a college degree to get into our industry. And there's a lot of people spending a lot of money on expensive education right now and not ending up with real great jobs at the end of it. So I encourage everybody, if you haven't, to look at the site, because we're telling stories. We're telling stories of people in our industry, and not just skilled trades. Everybody, engineers, architects, city plans examiners, surveyors, everybody who works in our industry, we're telling those stories. And I think there's a lot of wonderful stories there. Those who were at the AGM saw that young man from Tomlinson who was there and saw his video, which I thought was terrific, and it really showed that someone who's not inclined to go to post-secondary could get into our industry and be very successful, and to his say, have a good day when I go to work every day, right? And it's on all of us to promote our industry. You know, I'm not opposed to the idea of taking people from other industries. It's our industry, and if there's good people in other places, we've had some success going to the retail industry and other industries and selling what we do and getting people to come over and work on our side of the fence. But we do have to build this up. We've got a lot of work coming, as Steve said. I think we can be super optimistic about the economy in Ottawa in terms of our industry and where we're going in the next 5 to 10 years, but we need people, right? And we all have to focus on getting people, and even if it takes each one of us to take a young person for a walk on one of our job sites or into our office and sit with them and show them what we do and give them a taste test and change their mind that maybe this is a good place. We need to do those things, but it's on all of us to do that, right? The other thing is our immigration policy in this country is not doing its job. You know, I know if those of you seen the statistics, we're bringing in 10 times as many people with higher education and good language skills as we are with people with skilled trade ability. Okay, the numbers are very small in terms of people we're bringing in on the skilled trade side of things. I mean, no offense to university professors, but we brought in 8,000 university professors last year. I'm not sure why we need all those people, but we certainly need a lot of construction workers. So, you know, if you get an audience with anybody who's in government, we need to get this message across to them that your immigration policy is not bringing the right people in. And the other thing I would say is, if we do get workers in here, we need to bring supervisors in too. We've had experience on our job site where we get people from other countries in to work. They're good, hardworking people, but without people to supervise them, without people to help them do their jobs, we end up with things like on one of our jobs, boarding crew went in and boarded 2 units up, and great, and it was wonderful, and everybody walked in and said, but we don't need insulation and vapor barrier in this country, do we? So the drywall all came down and we did it again. Okay, but without proper supervision, and all these people needed was supervision. They're good, hardworking people. They're just a little misguided and they need it. So we need to bring supervisors in as well. And it's pretty critical we develop them. And we gotta all work on developing people to supervise our workers. So it's a big picture thing. Lots of great things are gonna happen and we just gotta focus. So, and for those, again, with regard to the website, if you'd like some of your people to tell their stories, please let us know because we're happy to tell stories. We're gonna be close to 200 stories up there by the time we get to the fall. We're 50 or 60 at this point. We've done 150 interviews and counting, and we're starting to do French language ones as well. But it's to promote our industry, to get young people to come over to our side and work with us.
I was going to add to what Bruce just said. For anyone in the industry, you know, be a teacher because, as you said, we have a lot of that, of the experienced folk in the industry currently that are retiring, and that knowledge can go with them if they don't pass it on. So share your knowledge, share your experience, and teach those younger folk coming up through the ranks.
Just maybe say one other quick thing, and it's just, you know, like for most successful businesses, you know, they are willing to reinvest in themselves through research and development and things of that concept. For us in our business, you know, a lot of our R&D is in the development of our people, our willingness to commit to teaching, to training, to putting the time and effort in. You know, finding people, as it turns out, you know, one of the things we've had a lot of success with is just empowering the rest of our employees to find people that, you know, are potentially interested, just have the right mindset. You know, there's so much of our business that we're capable of teaching when you're here and you're working and you've got a good mindset. Like we have individuals that we brought into the organization. You know, the best example I have is, you know, one of our estimators, you know, recommended his dog walker. You know, and it turns out she's a fantastic document controller and she's got a great level of interest in learning more about the business. You know, but I don't think we ever would have been able to find that individual through typical hiring means. You know, and if you can just push your people to at least keep their eyes open and ask some intelligent questions, you know, and bring those things back to your organizations, there's more opportunity to be able to find people that are not traditional candidates, I would say, to our industry from typical sources.
That's great.
So just to add to that, Steve, is that something you see more often now where people with less qualifications and or less experience are being brought in and being taught? Is that sort of the trend that you see?
That is, I mean, that's, I would say, certainly part of it. I mean, we try to take a very long view. You know, we're fortunate that we've got a pretty steady backlog of work. We're able to go, hey, 5 years from now, you know, we think we're going to be busy and we're still going to be doing stuff. And so we're willing to put 5 years worth of development into, a brand new engineering student in this case that maybe we have hired or we found through our student program. And we're going to say, hey, you have an interest in the field. We're going to teach you over the next 5 years to be a superintendent and not a project manager, because we need more superintendents, or we need, like when we focus on what our needs look like. But we're also, like I said, it's not just kids from school, it's wherever you can find the person. If they've got the right mindset, we're fortunate that there's a lot that you can teach in this business that doesn't require significant degrees or additional education from primary sources.
To that point, I'd say to people, hire a person, teach the job. So, we can teach a lot. Now, obviously, you don't teach someone how to be a surgeon, so to speak, but at the end of the day, hire for work ethic, for personality, for communication skills, for all those good character traits that are good, solid people, and then put them with the right people, as Lee mentioned, mentor them, teach them the job, and after a relatively short period of time, 2 to 5 years, you've got a highly performing person. And we've had success going to other industries and finding good people. And when I spoke to those people, it was like, did you ever consider our industry? They go, no. One of my health and safety officers came from Shoppers Drug Mart as a store manager, and a year and a half later, she's a highly functioning person in her job, doing a great job, and she brought a lot of transferable skills. I've got another one who came from the Civic Hospital. She was coordinator in the cancer ward. She's now a site coordinator at one of our job sites, and she actually said, I said, what do you think? She goes, less stress here. Imagine somebody in our industry saying there's less stress in our world. And she's thrilled, but you can imagine what it was like working at the cancer ward during COVID. It was very, very difficult, but she had these great transferable skills of coordinating, working with people, communicating, and we've taken advantage of those. She works with some wonderful people who are teaching her the construction industry. So lots of good people out there. You just got to find them.
Just to finish up there, I mean, obviously third-party recruiting is a big business in our industry now. We've had success, well, the most successful people that have come to our organization are often through word of mouth or relationship with an existing team member, and we've put an initiative in internally to kind of bonus and financially promote existing staff if they bring someone forward and that person turns out to be a good hire. We'd far rather pay our staff a bonus than pay a third-party recruiter. We seem to have more success that way as well.
Great, all good info. Yeah, mentoring, if I can just touch on that too. Mentoring just is huge. I've been around a long time. I try to do as much as I can to the new people coming up, but just reinforce that for everybody in the room. So, yes, sir.
In today's market, are you seeing the design assist approach where you subtrade is beneficial to a project, considering what those spending in the future years?
Short answer is yes. We've worked under, we've done multiple jobs and contracts where we've partnered, or even tendered, design assist services from the subcontracting community. I'm obviously particularly mechanical, electrical, in some cases structural there as well, but occasionally we've bridged even beyond that at times where it sort of made sense, whether it's complex envelope systems or things where you just see that it's, it's more important to lock up quality, trade resources and partner than it is to, chase bottom dollar in a particular contracting situation. But we see immense amount of value in trying to forge those partnerships, have the trades work very closely with the designers and basically come up with a better and more efficient set of documents early on, or at least a good understanding when people are locking in pricing, so that we're not dealing with conflicts, misunderstandings, and challenges that tend to slow jobs down. We're trying to have as efficient approach as possible in general terms, and so we find design assist very beneficial.
So I'm going to repeat something I said in January at an OCA panel where we talked about this, and that works great, Mark, and if the consultants put the right fee in to do the right job and stop chasing this to the bottom, so to speak. So it's a balancing act. We can't have design assist be transfer of responsibility from the consultants to the contractor to do your job, but you need to be paid enough money to do your job properly. And as we just went through a process with the city with regard to a large project they're considering, each entity has to pick their own delivery method, and then you have to do the best job you can. And lump sum work is not a wrong way to do things, but there's ways to do it properly and there's ways to do it improperly. Same with design assist, same with progressive design build and IPD. So you got to get the right players with the right amount of money to do the job properly to make it work. We're a huge advocate of design assist in a CM environment. It works great because we have good consultants that we work well with, and hopefully they're getting paid enough to, to do their jobs properly most of the time. So help yourself as well.
Yes, sir. Oh, 1 second, John.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was just curious, like, there's a lot of conversation about having more people resources come in and how you guys are trying to have the younger generation come up. Is there any other way that you see technology playing a role in that? Like, how do you see technology revolutionizing the future generation of your industry as it's like quite traditional in itself?
So for those who've been around, there's been a lot of AI presentations made, at least in the last 12 months. I've been to a number of them, right? And we have to find the balance between what AI can do for us. For instance, there's AI technology that can respond to proposals, and so are we saving time to do that? I mean, on the job sites, prefab, doing more off-site is a big movement. I mean, are we ever going to get to the point where we build a building in 24 hours like they do in China? I don't think so, probably. But right now, I think the industry is trying to find its way as to what's the balancing act between using AI and other forms of technology. I mean, we're all big users of technology. I mean, we all use construction management platforms and accounting platforms and estimating platforms to help us do things. But as Steve mentioned, and everybody mentioned here, we seem to be using more people to do the same amount of work. And I was at a product, and productivity was the next thing Huey was going to bring up, but it sort of touches into it. A little bit of information for everybody out there is that we're losing about 2% on productivity per year, and we have been for the last 30 years. Okay, so right now we're so far behind the manufacturing industry in terms of productivity, and if we don't do something about productivity in our industry, we got a big problem because we're never going to be able to fill the gap. I use a simple example. In 1999, our company built a 200,000 square foot building on piles in 11 months and moved Nortel in. That same building would take well over 2 years to build now, and ask yourself the question, with chemistry advancements and engineering advancements and equipment advancements and all the technology, why is it taking twice as long?
Do you feel like there's a space for technology to help you guys get more human resources coming in? Like, is there any way that you can see that being implemented?
You guys want to take a stab at that?
I mean, is it helpful? Yes, depending on what kind of technology you're talking about. If you're streamlining candidates or something like that, sure. Personally, am I going to use AI to filter through candidates for a job? No. It's a people industry, it's people based. It always has been. I mean, everybody on this panel has been talking and promoting, bringing people up in the industry, mentoring them, teaching them, going out and finding them. I think at the end of the day, while technology is going to play a very important role, and it is useful, I think at the end of the day, it's always going to be about people. And I hope it stays that way.
Good. John?
Bruce, you mentioned a number of things a little earlier. You talked about design assist, CM, lump sum work. I heard IP, integrated project delivery. Do you guys see a shift at all? I think in the past we've had that, in the industrial side, for instance, we had engineering, procurement, construction. Here we had a lot of lump sum work over the years. Do you guys see a shift towards something else, or I guess it comes down to, in terms of percentages of those various types of delivery models, are you seeing a shift to one or the other, or is it constantly in flux?
Well, what I think we're seeing is it depends on the owner and their, for instance, I'll use the City of Ottawa, and if there's anybody from the City of Ottawa in the room, they probably have to more often than not go to a lump sum situation because it suits their need for a price on day one and cost certainty in their mind. So my comment to them would be, do it well. Potentially have an advocate GC involved or an advisory GC involved while you're doing the design to make sure you've got good documents, make sure your contract documents are risk balanced. pre-qualify your bidders, do all those things so you get the best chance for success. Our private sector clients, CM, CCDC 5B works great in a design assist situation, working on a team. That works well, but I would say to the GCs in the room, charge for your pre-construction services. Don't do it for free. Don't do it on the hope that there's going to job, because Seth mentioned how much time we're spending on projects that get shelved. You know, so if we're not at least covering some of our estimating and pre-construction costs, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. So I think it depends on the owner and their choices. Steve, PCL is obviously involved in some very, very large projects, and I'll let Steve comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say part of what we've seen is just there's always an evolution of approach. It may change the nature of how work is contracted, but like the fundamental concept generally is, if you can find a way to get more of the right people at the table, early or at the right time, and have them engaged, that is usually beneficial for a program, whether it's a CM or even a design build type approach or some of these other kind of things. Some of the very, very large programs that we're seeing now, the biggest of the P3s, oftentimes are now running under splits where there's individual contracts for design and potentially enabling works ahead of the main P3 contract in some cases, just to be able to find ways to take some of the heavy risk investment out of the nature of how some of this work is there, like what the upfront costs may look like and the extensions of both designers and contractors, and find ways to be able to get them working together for the benefit of the client. Because at the end of the day, that's really what we're looking for, is whatever model can get us to a place, that we have the right people working together to the right goal, is I would say beneficial for everyone involved.
Yeah, and I think it depends on the client as well, John, too. For the public sector, sometimes they have to follow their other rules and regulations that they have to abide by. So. Yes.
I guess this is more like a curiosity question for people of my generation. For larger corporations such as PCL and Elliston, all of those bigger construction companies in the world, are there people who are actually looking at the job application? Because it is pretty well known that there is like a computer system that kind of filters some resumes and CVs and all that. So I'm wondering if there's actually like, because I know a few people who have been coming from other countries, who have, let's say, some like civil engineering backgrounds and stuff like that, but they're struggling to get jobs because most jobs are going through word of mouth. So what tips do you have for, let's say, newcomers or the newer generation to apply to jobs?
One of the things that I would say is, it's no different than, when you're working on a job site, as an example, and you've got a young person, you go, hey, did you follow up on that concrete pour for tomorrow? And they say, well, I sent an email. And it's just, that's not following up on something, that's not the right approach. And same thing, like if you're actively out there looking for work, I mean, that is part of, working, for lack of a better term. Like, applying to company portals and plugging into their systems for resumes and applications and things like that is just one step of many steps that I would be suggesting that should be taken. Like we still manually screen the vast majority of the resumes and items that sort of come into the company here right now, but I guarantee that someone in our organization is definitely looking at, how do we make this more efficient? Like that is the nature of the push. But many of the people that we end up hiring and the things that were there, they're willing to either, poke their head onto a job site, find someone, in some cases just reach out through whatever connections they may or may not have, whether it's through, some of their university backgrounds, through some of their friends of friends, whatever it might be, to just try and find, is there some version of a person that I can connect with somehow that helps to be able to get past just the basic sort of pre-screen, because that's just a huge part of this stuff.
So, the careers program we've launched at the OCA is a great opportunity for people to reach to us at the OCA through the Connect program, to ask to visit with people or get, to build those connections. I mean, I'm going to turn to you, but he can tell you a story about a young lady that works in his estimating department that came from overseas, and I asked her at I think it was the chairman's reception in November, like, how did you end up at Greyback? And she says, well, they hired me. They responded to my resume. So I don't know how that happened, JB.
Yeah,
Maybe
no,
you can share that story, because she's a wonderful young lady.
Yeah, she's from Egypt, and she just she was new to the country, and we put a posting out. She applied, She followed up a few times, and after a couple interviews, and she's working in our office.
But I think make contact with people. Like there's lots of the OCA runs, the OYCL runs events all the time. It's a chance to meet people. But reach out to us through the OCA Careers website, and we'll help connect people to at least have a conversation. I've always said to people, I'm happy to sit and spend a half an hour of my time with a cup of coffee chatting about the industry and what a great place it is, and maybe I can connect them to somebody. And I think we all feel that way if somebody reached out. You just got to reach out. I mean, you got to make the effort to reach out, and starting at the construction associations is a great place to do it. So.
Well, and to add to that, also follow up, be your own advocate, stop in at the head office, drop off your resume in person. If you're not getting anywhere with the portal, pick up the phone. I think you've heard us all say that we want to bring the people in, and if for some reason you get missed the first time, come back again.
All right. So we got about 2 minutes left, so I don't know if there's one more question. Yep, go ahead.
I would like to know how temporary foreign workers, particularly in skilled trades, feature as part of your staffing strategy, whether there are any pros and cons of experience in that area, and if you could contextualize how you see that opportunity developing in the context of the federal government considering reducing skilled trades accreditation rules for entry.
That is a big question.
That's a big question. And I'm not.
Good question.
Our only experience with foreign worker situation is we brought a superintendent in from New York City. And I went through the immigration policy, or the process with him personally. And it was a process. It involves a bit of an entanglement. I don't know how it works or if anybody's had an experience with skilled trades in getting that done, but I don't think it's an easy process necessarily. But again, we do need the workers and we need the supervisors. So I would hope that the government works towards, their alignment, just to put it in perspective. They announced yesterday they're going to build 5.9 million homes between now and 2031. And the simple math is we've been averaging 230,000 homes a year for the last 10 years through a peak and a valley and everything else. And they want to build 550,000 for the next 7 years. And let the industry answer the question. If we get the people to do it, if we connected the dots here, we're not even close. So it's pie in the sky what they're promising. We do need, but we can only bring so many in without getting them properly trained and supervised. So it's a challenge.
The only other thing that I would kind of add to that is that obviously, you need partnerships at the labor level, like especially, if you're working in a unionized environment, that you're fully leveraging, the resources that they have, because they have to be partners in this process. Otherwise it struggles, and they have, I would say, more ability to advocate, to help advance certain, agendas at the government level, at the policy level, and things of that nature to be able to help affect some of the change that we're talking about. Not related to our industry, but just, probably one of the more recent stories that I'd looked at that was a great example of this is in Nova Scotia. They had significant challenges in their healthcare system. One of the biggest impediments was just finding nurses and doctors, and they changed their criteria. They rolled back some of the things that we're sort of talking about here. To be able, if you're a doctor in a country, you should be able to be a doctor in Canada as long as your system is roughly equivalent. And that opened the floodgates for opportunity for people to see the opportunity to be able to come in. Like if we're capable of doing things like that, but it requires government to be able to make some of those rollbacks. It requires partnerships beyond individual companies at the industry level to affect that kind of change. That's beyond the OCA, even that's CCA and other significant labor organizations.
That's great. Well, I think we're at our time. One more question, maybe? Yeah. Sure.
So the CCA's role is to advocate. And at that level, I'm involved at that level, and they are very active advocating for change in this. And the LCAs, all the local construction associations, are feeding their feedback through the CCA. So it is there. I was up on the Hill in November. CCA has a Hill Day. We got a chance to speak to many MPs about this. It's ongoing, but as I said, I think the biggest thing is them understanding the entire food chain. You want to build 550,000 homes, the city needs more people to process site plan applications and building permits. The industry needs to get more people in. Immigration needs to be tied to it. There's so much work to do to make this happen, and it's all great headlines, but you know, there's a lot of work to be done on the ground to tie the food chain together to make it work. So, not an easy answer. It's a lot of work, and hopefully we're going to get there. Or work towards it.
Yeah, thanks. All right, well, it's 9:30. I think we're going to get kicked out of here soon. So thanks, everybody. Thank you all for coming, and thanks to our panel. Thank you, guys.